In this video, I want to talk about whether you, your team, or your business is set up for success. What's going on, guys? Armando Gong here, back with another video, here to help you find some clarity, direction in your life, and to help expand your headspace. I'm talking about this topic because, like most of you, coronavirus has definitely impacted me in my life, and I just wanted to share about this recent experience that I had that I hope we can apply to my life, your life, and just future dealings that you have. As you may or may not know, I worked as a personal trainer pre-coronavirus, and with all gyms being closed at the moment, I am pretty much out of work. And as part of that, I'm trying to apply for unemployment benefits in New York State. And part of the process requires you to both fill out an online application as well as call into the office to complete your application. For the website application, it took about a day, but eventually I got that done. But the calling in part has been quite difficult, to say the least. I've tried calling them roughly 1,600 times at this point, been able to get through to the part where you actually enter your automated information roughly 25 times out of those 1,600 times. And each time after that, they pretty much cut me out saying that they're too busy, which I get that. And so I didn't want to just complain about it and just whine about it, but rather just try and take something away from this experience so that we can all apply it to ourselves, in both in our businesses and how we live our lives and the systems we set up to live with. Now, I think when we're looking at it in terms of our own lives, we should always ask ourselves a couple of questions before we start implementing something new that you may or may not have tried before. I think we've all been in work situations where, let's say, we've had a boss or a manager tell us that we had to get something done by the end of the week, when in reality, that probably should take like a whole month. And what happens after that? You start scrambling, you start taking shortcuts. By the end of that week, you have to get your deadline due. And most of the time, the product is not as good as it could have been when, if you just took your time with it, you actually planned it out, you took the correct steps, you mapped it out, and followed through with that, and you got the right people involved, your product at the end of the appropriate time frame within that actual 1 month is probably going to be a lot better because you didn't rush through it and you didn't try to cut any corners with it. And I think it's like one of those valid questions that I had about this unemployment situation. As part of the stimulus package, the government increased the amount of unemployment benefits a person was able to receive, which obviously makes it so that you will need to reapply some more, or people are more interested in applying for unemployment. And I had that question of whether the government even knew that their offices could or could not handle this surge. Not to talk about the fact that there's a lot more people applying for unemployment to begin with. So I think it's one of those questions where if you're not actually doing the work involved in when making a decision, like, do you talk to the people that are working and doing that work to know what their capacity is? How much more room do they have? Like, what is their capabilities in order to handle said work? I think that when you actually ask the relevant people who are doing the actual work what the expected time frame is, what their capabilities are, can they get something done, it's a much more productive process rather than going from a top-down approach where you dictate something has to be done within a certain time frame. It may or may not be unrealistic, and then you get something that may or may not be the best product, rather than going from a bottoms-up approach where you just talk with the co-workers, work with them, make something that is reasonable on both ends, and live with that decision, because at that point, the people who are on the ground doing the work knows what's best. And I feel like it's always relevant to ask for their input first before you make any type of decisions. Whether that's even in the government, whether it's in your organization, whether it's on your team, ask the people who are the most affected by it what they think about it first. Now, assuming that everything you're doing is currently working for you, right? Like, what would it look like if, let's say, the demand that you received was like 10 times greater than it was currently? And I got reminded of it by one of the books I read previously called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, which I will leave a link in the description below. And I got a lot out of it, because I like to think of, like, now whenever I approach a problem, what is it going to look like if, let's say, currently I'm serving 1 customer? What would it look like if I served 10 customers? Can what I am currently doing actually handle that surge in demand? Because I think that a lot of times we try to just work harder or put in more hours, and eventually that leads to burnout, and you will still be doing the same thing over and over again and not really reaching that next step. But if you think about the 10X rule, where it's like you increase the demand by so much, by an order of magnitude, can what you're currently doing actually handle that new demand? Are your systems set up currently to be able to manage that? And I think most of the time we can answer that it's definitely not. Most of the time we think of just trying to put in more man hours in order to handle that, try to put in more effort, and that will work a little bit. Like you might be able to handle, like, instead of one client, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 at that point. But what about 10 clients, 100 clients, 1,000 clients? You know, as you step up the order, you have to refine your systems. You have to rethink the way that you're doing. You have to actually ferret out a lot of inefficiencies of what you are currently doing. And I think just this coronavirus situation really taxed a lot of the systems that we have currently in place and really exposed a lot of inefficiencies, which we can make another video about at another given time. But I think that this 10x rule is very, very relevant. And you can apply this to yourself in a lot of different situations, right? Like, for example, if you are currently making, let's say, $50,000, right? Like, what is it going to take for you to make $500,000, right? Would that require you to learn a new set of skills? Would that require you to take on another job? What would that actually look like for you in order to get that done? Similarly speaking, like if you have a business, right? Like, and you are currently servicing, let's say, 10 customers a day. What is it going to look like if you want to service 100 customers? Does that mean that you have to increase the amount of leads that you get? Does that mean that you have to refine your systems currently so that you can actually serve all the needs of those people? And another valid point that I think as part of like a sports team, right? I'm part of a dragon boat team. Typically, we don't have that many newcomers join the boat. And so a lot of times, like when one newcomer comes on, 2 newcomers come on, we can pretty much just look after them, give them our attention at that point. But I honestly don't know what would happen if we, let's say, like had 10 newcomers come on, 20 newcomers come on all at once. What exactly would that system look like for us? And I think for me, it's like trying to refine what we can or cannot do and make sure that it accommodates what we're trying to achieve. So I think that's just a good mental exercise to always ask yourself, if what you're currently doing is working and you're trying to up it a little bit, like what exactly will that look like? Does that mean switching certain things up? Does that mean creating new systems? Does that mean creating a new plan of attack? Whatever comes up in your mind, you know, like I think that's one of the biggest things I got out of this unemployment issue, dilemma, predicament, whatever you want to call it. Just that the systems weren't set up to handle it. I don't know why it is what it is, but usually there's a reason. I don't know what it is, but it's good to always just think about, for any future situations, how exactly you would handle that situation rather than react to it, and most times you are in dire straits at that point. So what's one of the main takeaways I want you to get from this video? In a lot of the situations that you encounter in life or are managing yourself, think about whether you can actually apply the 10x rule, meaning if what you're currently doing is working, right? Like what exactly is it going to look like if you try to change it on another magnitude? For me, numbers are very easy to think about. Instead, you have like 1 new member, 10 new members, 100 new members. Those are very concrete numbers. A lot of times we do not want to change what currently works for us because change is very scary for a lot of people and it's something we are not used to. But if there's something you want to achieve that is completely different than what you're currently experiencing, what exactly would it take for you to get to that level? And I think that's where this 10x rule really applies, both in terms of forcing you to rethink what you're currently doing, because just doing something a little more, taking a little more effort, putting a little more time into it only works up to a certain degree. It doesn't actually affect you on a different magnitude. And that's pretty much what I want you to take away from this video. Please leave a comment below in terms of how you can apply this 10x rule into your life down below, and subscribe to my channel. And I hope you got something out of this video. Take it easy.